a little bit of background. Here's a perfectly self-serving picture. We did have a pretty good session for higher ed last year, which was fortunate. I felt privileged to be a part of that process and pass some legislation. We were debating the Tier 1 bill, and we were showing that California, I spoke to an LA Times reporter this morning who reminded me that California has 9 Tier 1s, New York has 7, and the second largest state, your state, Texas, only has 2 publics and 1 private, Rice. So UT, A&M, and Rice. So this chart was selling my colleagues on the fact that we had a problem. We need more Tier 1 universities. And this chart was showing them the way out with our network of funds that Dean Deal was kind to mention on the way out. And so that was sort of our signature legislation last time. A little bit of background just to get a sense. I always like to get a sense of what we're talking about. So 1.5 million. Remember, we have about 25.5. The census said 25.2 million people. So we're over 25. I think it's actually larger. We had our own state demographer tell us under oath we were closer to 25.5. But anyway, 1.5 million out of that group is in the higher ed system. And you can see the numbers, 4 years, of which University of Texas is just one, but the largest. You might say the best. Those in College Station might want to agree with you, maybe not. 6 university systems, so we have 6 systems like the UT system or the A&M system or the Tech system or the Texas State system. So we have systems that manage universities within their system. We have some that don't have, that are independents. We have private universities like Rice, TCU, SMU. We have health-related institutions that are both medical schools and other type of institutions like hospitals, like the world's best cancer research facility, UT/MD Anderson in Houston. We have Baylor College of Medicine. It's a private independent, but actually gets funded as if it's a public based on an agreement with Dr. Abeki back in 1969, and they come every 2 years and get their public funding. 50 community college districts, 80 community college campuses, actually a little more than 80 now. We have career schools that are now included. These are the private universities that are now included for our Closing the Gaps, our statewide goals for higher education. Last session, to top 10% reform. Tower here looks familiar. This was a central piece of legislation that your President Bill Powers and the Chancellor Francisco Figueroa wanted to make sure we passed, because this university was being overrun by automatic admissions, and we were risking at some point not being able to recruit any students and just having automatic admits from the top 10% of the classes in Texas come into the university. The problem with that, of course, is there's way more. There's about 30,000 that could come into normally entering class of about 7,000, and there was no way to limit that and filter that and also get students in the broad range of colleges and fill out the class in a way that advances the university and the state. So what we did was we basically came in and turned it into a top 8% system for those seniors that are now being admitted to the university, and that will help us limit. You all will now be able to, the administration will be able to control more of the class. It also limited the number of out-of-state students that can come in, and so basically gave back to your university administration the ability to control and better manage the student body population. At the downside, of course, is you have to be in the top 8%, so it's makes your campus more selective. The good news is they can holistically find people who maybe didn't make the top 8, but are also very good in some other things and add to the diversity of the campus. So the other was the House Bill 51 that talked about this. These are the 7 schools that have been designated as emerging Tier 1s, and they hope to join the ranks of A&M and Texas in the near future, and that may mean maybe that's 5 years, maybe that's 10 years, maybe that's longer. So various schools are along this path toward Tier 1, and we wanted to create a series of incentives, carrots if you will, to make sure they made their way there. The one that is really a large carrot is this $600 million pool that we now made we're working on the rules. We have a series of rules. I think there'll be some more details, but basically this is a corpus of funds, $600 million, that whoever gets meets certain metrics first, then they get to tap into that and pull interest off that. And that gives them a sort of an additional boost toward moving toward national recognition as a Tier 1. University of Houston got the Carnegie Mellon recognition a few weeks ago about being in what they consider first level of research universities, and other universities have picked up new metrics of progress. So this group, I say particularly Texas Tech, moving very fast, University of Houston, UT Dallas, but in many ways I could talk about all the accomplishments at North Texas, UTEP, Arlington, UTSA, and it's really energized their communities. I mean, they are really excited. Their editorial board, their newspapers, their civic groups, the giving is up, and so people are excited about moving toward Tier 1 status. This was we passed this on the last night of the session, and at one point we picked up other friends along the way, as that happens in legislation. We were now carrying legislation for UTMB Galveston and $150 million of facilities funding and other things that we had picked up. And so at some point, a lot of members from all over the state wanted to make sure we were passing the bill. And at this point, someone was slowing it down at the back mic. This is the front mic in our chamber. And so at some point, I was getting a lot of my colleagues became my friends, and they were wanting to make sure we didn't run out of time. The speaker had told me to make sure we don't get this bill into the last hour of the session, and we were now, I think, 45 minutes to go, and everyone was kind of getting nervous, but we were fortunate to ultimately light up these voting boards with a bunch of green lights and pass the legislation. These were some of the other the pools of funding that we added, which also helped help UT and A&M. This program, which would help even a broader array of schools, did not get funding, but the legislative framework was put in place for smaller schools that have centers of excellence. We also did a non-binding resolution late in the session where we were able to pass try to put hopefully a strong recommendation that your tuition sort of stay at a fairly modest level because families were hurting from the recession. And I'm happy to say that your university system and most of the systems came in under 4% in terms of the increases. And Texas, compared to the nation, we had about a 4% increase. The nation was around 8%. But large states like California, Illinois, where they were suffering some really tough shortfalls, even in the previous budget cycle, have had dramatic increases. If you go to places like UCLA or Berkeley, I think where President Powers did some of his academic work, I mean, the increases were in the 30 to 50% range over the last few years. So the tuition has had to go up dramatically there, as have fees, in order to manage through their difficult budget shortfalls that they've been experiencing.